How's it going, guys? Hope we're all doing, and welcome to a brand new video tutorial from Udemy. So today we have a really awesome tutorial and a really awesome framework to deep dive and just give you like a quick introduction into this framework. So we're gonna talk today about Sails.js. What is this framework and why you need it? So first things first, what is Sails.js? Sails.js is an Express/Node.js based framework, a high-level based framework, an MVC framework, model view controller that allows you actually to create high-level applications, production-ready, and a rich set of features that are available for you during the development. Some of you might ask, why would I choose Sails.js over Express? In this case, there's no comparison between Sails.js and Express, since Express is just like a low-level framework that operates just in a low-level machine or low-level layer with Node.js, and allows you actually to do requests and handle requests and responses and do middlewares and all different things. But when you try to create your own application, for example, you start your own startup, or just get into it with the team and create your dream application or something like this, or create just like a production ready project for using it or like for your own company, that's not going to be the case when you're using Express, because it's not going to be your choice. You're gonna have a lot of security flaws and a lot of vulnerabilities you need to fix, and you need to patch that. You need to add a lot of handlers for these security patches. You need to install a lot of things. You need to find the right project structure for yours, and so on and so forth. You need a command line interface that assists you throughout the whole development series. You might want to also create your own system, your own pipeline for managing the models, the controllers, and all the different views together to get a smooth development environment and a smooth performance as well, without having any headache during the actual development process. When it comes, Sails.js is actually going to help you a lot when it comes to dealing or creating your Express/Node.js applications. It's like a high-level framework. It gives you a lot of features. It gives you a pipeline to work around with, and an awesome project structure with other awesome things like a system built underneath Express and Node.js, of course, that allows you to do so. So let's just jump in here. This is actually the main official website of Sails.js. It's basically really awesome thing. It's version 1.0 in here, and a lot of people actually loving it and going nuts over it. There's plenty of frameworks on Node.js. You can clearly see there's 20,000 stars on GitHub for this, and a lot of likes and stuff. You might want to go ahead and read about the features. So I don't know, you might probably heard about this, but you still can't actually figure out your head if you go with it, if it's good for you, which one to choose, like for example versus Loopback or versus Nuts or something like this. There's other plenty of frameworks, as I've said. But yeah, today I'm going to go ahead and try to give you a quick overview about this and just explain the project structure, the command line interface, and all the ecosystem, or how controllers, models and views works together, and all different things. So you might get like a point of whether to choose Sails.js for your development or for your next application, or just go ahead and figure out or try to find something else. So starting off, this is actually the web page. To get started, you firstly need to install it. As any other framework you've dealt with in your life or something like this, a Node.js framework or anything else, you need to first go ahead and install this. But in this case, you're not going to need to install this per projects. So just on a local project that's meant for development, no, this is going to be installed for a global project development. So you're going to install this as development. Just type in npm install Sails in here. So just do npm install Sails-g, and this is going to be installed as a global. It's the same as saying global in here, and there we go. So just wait for this. It's going to install really quickly, and everything's going to be done. Afterwards, after you install this, now you can go ahead and just create your application. Make sure to cd to where you want to create the project and use this command line. So it's going to be Sails, do new command, and you give it like the project's name, for example app name in here, or application or something like this. It's just going to go ahead and try to create that for you. Once you type this, it's just going to go and try to ask you about two things: whether you want to create a full extensible project, which is like a web application, or just in an empty project Sails application. So I really prefer you go with the first one, because I always use the first one. If you want to just like an advanced thing and start it from scratch and you know what you're doing, so you might want to consider going with the MC, the second option. But the web application is actually the best thing, with like the login, the password, and recovery. So you can go with empty as well. So having none of these actually predefined, you just get a bare Sails project, just empty for you sitting there, and you can go ahead and start working on it from scratch. So that's pretty great. You can go ahead and choose 2, and it's gonna do the job for you. Just gonna set up and install the modules, configure stuff for you, and just you gotta go ahead and wait for it. I've already done all of different things in here. You want to also consider just go ahead and reading through that, or even just going and seeing the demo application here, because it gives you like an overview of how Sails operates behind the scenes. So this is basically it for setting up and installing everything. Now we want to go ahead and jump into our editor in here, and I choose to use actually Visual Studio Code because it's like an awesome editor and it has a lot of features and it works with a plethora of things that Sails actually supports. So first things first, when we try to look on something in this is actually the project's structure. So we're gonna take a deep dive into the project structure that Sails.js creates for us. And some of you might think, why Sails choose this over hundreds of thousand project structures and stuff like this. It's very simple in this case. It has a couple of folders I organized in here, and I really like it and I really enjoyed it working with this actually structure. It makes it smooth for you for developing and for just like production, and either for maintaining your application. It's gonna make it super simple for you. So starting off in here, you've got like a temporary folder. You don't really need to care about that because this is gonna be created by Sails itself to manage some dependencies and manage some stuff behind the scenes. So you don't really have to care about this that much. There's the most important folder in here, which is the API folder that has all of your code in here. So your application logics, what I mean by this is actually the controllers. When you create it, as I've told you, Sails is based on MVC. So there we go. You've got to go ahead and put in your controls in here. You put your helper functions that helps you achieve some kind of, a unit functionalities or unit processes. Gives you like your models for interacting with the database, and the policies in here in this case are just like a specific kind of controllers. So policies are the same as controllers, but they have a little bit of much more constraints and much more features and stuff that you can use instead of controllers. We're gonna talk. You might want to just go and take a look on the documentation. It has a very self-explanatory documentation in there. There's the second one, which is the assets. So inside of these assets, you have all of your static assets. What I mean by this is when you actually create your application, and this is actually going to be residing in the backend, you're obviously going to go ahead and have alongside this a client-side application or a front-end application. If it is just too small and not that much of big or anything that much of large, you might want to go ahead and consider putting it in here, because everything is going to be organized in here. Like you put in your JavaScript files, putting your styles in here, and since you have like a small application, you can go ahead and put all of the images and the dependencies aligned in here, and you can go ahead and have it working. But in other case, if you try to create a high-level application, large, and create a microservices application, where actually the front-end application and the back-end application are completely separate, completely dependent on each other's, so they have got nothing to do with each other's. You just go ahead and delete this, like get rid of the JavaScript and the styles. You don't really need them anyway. So this is actually what it is. There's also one more important folder in here, which is the config folder that has all of your configurations, that empowers and tells how Sails framework actually interacts with the application. You can change and customize any configuration in here. There's actually anything you want to think about when you actually try to create a backend application, like sessions, sockets, dealing with views, routes, and plethora of things in here that actually can help you achieve a customizable framework and add your own settings, add your own data into it, and create your application throughout this. So this is a really awesome point about Sails, and I really like that much. It gives you everything. You can actually customize from the ground up. You can add your own things, you can delete things, so you can have your own application as dealing with Express itself, like going deeper on the layers and going to low level. So this is actually what it is. There's also some kind of environment for production and stuff like this, stuff that matters. Obviously there's the node modules folder that holds all of your nodes, and there's actually the tasks folder. The tasks folder, what it does is actually pretty simple. When you actually, if you're familiar with tasks and running auto or task automation on a Node.js application, is actually when you, for example, try to create your front-end application or compile your JavaScript files like ESX files into a normal JavaScript files using Webpack, you can go ahead and use this tag to automate the process and does it for you just by running a command and stuff like this. So it's the same thing for Sails. It does that for automating commands and doing a couple of commands, like it clearly see like polyfill for supporting older browsers, and syncing assets like compiling, or you can take, for example, copy a views folder from here and you can take it and put it in here inside of this assets or something like this after compiling it. And this is actually a task or something. It uses Grunt. Grunt is actually a task manager and it does all of different things in here. And finally, there is the views folder where all of your views gonna be residing, and like pages, layouts, and one thing, Sails.js actually supports the EJS template engine. So you can go ahead and learn if you know all that already, or you might want to go ahead and use another template engine like Pug or Hamel or Jade or anything, any template engine you actually prefer using. You can go ahead and put your customized configuration for it and use it as normal as possible. So it's pretty great about views and how whatever actually template engine you want to use. And there's actually a plethora of other configuration files like the editor configuration, ESLint, gitignore, grind file for configuring the task manager, and the bank.json, and obviously some TS configuration here if you want to use TypeScript. Of course, you can go ahead and use TypeScript without any problems. But there's one main file in here, which is the main entry point for your application. If you can take a look on this one, what it does is basically lift your application or your Sails server. What I mean by this, what I mean by lifting, is actually just running the Sails server. And you don't really have to care about doing it as Express, like listening on a single port or something. This Sails is gonna do that all for you. Just call Sails.lift and you give it the configuration. The RC Sails gonna go ahead and tells it to grab this configuration, reads it from the file. So if you want to just configure anything about the server or anything about Sails itself, the framework on itself, you can go ahead and put all the configuration that matters inside of the Sails RC file. Fair enough. So all of the different things in here are pretty good. If you're still thinking this is a little bit tedious and you don't really like this structure, you can go ahead and change it, but you might want to consider changing as well a lot of configuration and telling Sails how files are organized, the new organization or the new ordering of the files that you have chosen. Anyway, so this is actually the configuration. Hopefully you got a point of how configuration works. Beside this project configuration and stuff like that, there's a really awesome thing about Sails, which is the command line interface. What is the command line interface is actually what lets you control Sails and configure the projects, like do some kind of tasks, generate some configuration, generate some files, and so on and so forth. So since you have installed Sails globally, you can go ahead and just type in Sails in here and you will be able to access all the configuration. It kind of gives you a list of available commands. So there's actually lifts. By lifting, it's just like running up your server. There's the new command to create a new projects with Sails framework. Generate, you can go ahead and use the generate, like you can tell it Sails generate, you can give it a model. So you tell it to go ahead and generate for me a model. You can give it a name, for example foo, and it just go ahead and generate a foo model inside of the models folder. So everything is automated. The framework is very smart and it knows where everything resides and all the different places that where controls are, where models are, and so on and so forth. So it puts everything on its place without any problems, nothing at all, just by the generate command in here. You can have upgrade in here for upgrading the version of Sails. The console in here, what it tells or it gives you is basically some interaction with the framework. It tries to lift your application or lift your server, and it gives you like a ripple where you can actually execute everything like a normal JavaScript environment, and you can run commands on it and stuff like this. This is really helpful when it comes to interacting with the database, trying to test something really quick, like some kind of command or something like this. Or you can just easily go ahead and check if any record has been saved on the database throughout the model or anything like that. It's pretty great actually. There's a www, the debug, inspect, and plenty of other commands. As I've told you, the console in here, what it does, you can add like an option in here, so don't lift, to tell it that you don't really want to lift the server if it is already has been lifted, which is in my case it's already running. So it tells you in here if you want to alter the developments, or like it talks about the tables on your database. So if you want to drop them, you just go with save and stuff like this. You can check out the documentation. It's a little bit more complicated than it looks, but I just want to show you this. This is actually the console. You can interact and create variables and stuff, but the most important part about this is actually you can interact with the application at the real time. So you can type in commands, you can access the models that you define in here. In this case, I'm having a model called todo.js, and what does this model is actually having a name, an attribute called name, or you might want to consider it as a column, name, and another column done, which is a boolean, and this one is actually a string. So you might want to go ahead and access this by just Sails. It's a global variable. You can access models and you can give it the name of the model has been registered. It takes the name from a file itself, so make sure to name the file of your model correctly, and you just put that, and it gives you all like the functions, the attributes, like links to this model alongside what are saved in here. This clearly see I've already saved something, some kind of a record on the database, which is this one with an ID, name, and done, and like some kind of like, this is the schema how it works. And you can grab things from the database and save them in the database, and it gives you also the connection objects and all different things. So this is just what I want to just point you out, guys, to actually you can go ahead and interact directly with the Sails framework from the command line interface using the console command. So it's pretty great actually to deal with things. After the command line interface, there's also another things you might want to consider. Actually, I'm just going to give you like an overpoint or my point and try to explain to you how Sails in general works. So the most important part about Sails, it works above, or it builds above an MVC architecture, a model view routes architecture. So this actually what it means, an MVC, like model view and a controller architecture. If you don't know that, I have a video tutorial about this on my channel, so you make sure to go ahead and check it out if you really want to find out what it does and what is this architecture. But basically there's the three types in here: the controls inside of the API and the models inside of that as well. The views are inside of this, so you need to put identical files in there in order to make them work together. But the most important parts here, there's actually a naming convention behind this. What I mean by this is you can go ahead and put your controls inside of files, like create inside of these controls, create a file, for example, my controller.js, and you can have this and you can deal with it as a normal Express controller. You can do like more exports, and you can name like function or something like this, do something or anything like that, and you can have like a request passed in, a request, a response, and a next function as you were dealing with an Express function or Express controller. Nothing that much of complicated or anything at all. But the other most important thing, you can have this inside of here with a couple of functions, like multiple functions defined inside of the same file, but you can have another different awesome, and I really love this architecture, which is you can split your controllers inside of like folders, and inside of this folders there's all of the functions, each function on a separate file for dealing with the control. So the control is actually representing is actually a folder. Inside of this folder there's all the different files which are functions on its own, and that actually handles the request. So you here have add.js. What does this function does is actually adds a new to do to the database. But some of you might take a look on this file and say, okay, that's not looking as an Express controller function. Alright, yes, it's not, because Sails.js supports two types of controllers. The first one is actually the normal controls that I was speaking about, is the normal Express controls, like you do export your function name and it takes request, response, and the next. The other one is actually a node machine architecture, and this is what a node machine architecture looks like. It's pretty great. Some of you might think like, why would I do all of different things in here? That would be really boring and really bad. No, it's not. When you're choosing Sails, you think about maintaining your code, you think about other people, other collaborators on your team, or whether you're putting in GitHub or something, try to understand what you're doing with your code and what each part is doing on its own. So making it simple as this, using a node machine is very simple. A node machine, basically what it does, you can have inputs, exits in here, and inside of those you actually specify what are the variables this particular function, this particular controller function is going to be receiving, like the name, and you give it the type, and actually exit, like if it's success, it's going to return response code. If it's failed, you can like return a custom message in here. The final most important thing is actually the function that gets executed, and it's gonna be passed like the input and the exit, and of course you can go ahead and access the request and everything else. So yeah, that's completely awesome thing. You can read more about node machines in the documentation, but I just want to point you guys about this two type of things. So that's how actually a controller would look like, and it's like identical to any other Express Node.js controller without any problems. There's also the models. The models actually are pretty identical, and since Sails.js uses and it's based on an ORM model, and which lets you actually interact with multiple databases at the same time with a single API without even changing anything, any functions at all. You just like type your code once and you can use multiple databases like using MongoDB or using MySQL, Redis, or you can even use the file system on itself, which is just for development and testing purposes only, but you still have got a lot of options to work with from Sails with just one single API using the waterline ORM. So this is what an ORM does, and Sails.js has this waterline which is open source. Of course, you can go ahead and check it out. It just gives you that. You can here define the schema inside of the model. There's like attribute. You give an attribute like the name of the attribute, type a string, and you give it if it's required. You might want to allow a nullable value to be inserted inside of this, which is false. You can also have a default. There's a plethora of other things that you can have inside of this schema in here as you are dealing with a normal database. But the most important part and an awesome part that I like about this is just like typing this once, and you actually can use multiple databases. Like you can use MongoDB for specific tasks, and on the other hand, you can go and use MySQL for completely dependent tasks as well on the same application with one single API without changing anything at all. So Sails.js supports that, and this is actually how you create a model. And I've told you, you can go and use the command line interface to generate a model very simply and very quickly without any problems. For the policies as well, it's pretty much as controllers, so you can take them as controllers but with a little bit much better features, and they have like specific features that you can use. You can check out the documentation, of course, and then that is it about the controllers, the models and stuff like this. They are super simple and super easy, but we haven't covered one thing, which is the route. So controllers needs to be linked together or alongside with a route to work properly. So inside of the configuration folder, as I've told you before, everything's going to be there. Route is actually considered a configuration. So you can go to route.js, and inside of that you're going to find a model.export.route, which export a route object that has all of your application routes inside of this. This route thing has a specific schema. What do I mean by this? First, it is actually a key value pairs. So you give it the key in here, which is actually the route path that the user might actually submit or request or anything like that. So like your API path, this is actually the roots of your API. So just a // and here it takes a key. For the key, you can have a couple of things. The first one, you can have like a view, which is an object. You pass in a view property to it, and you give it the name of the view that gets executed. So if you take a look on the views folder, you can go to views, pages, and homepage.ejs. So it goes inside of that, it grabs this view and it returns it to it directly without contacting any controls or nothing at all. So this one is just very intermediate. It doesn't go through all the control or anything. It just like returns the view back when requesting this particular path. The other couple of things, like you can actually specify by default in this case, there's actually a get request. So whether you specify it or not, it's going to be by default, but you can specify other methods like posts, or you can say there's going to be delete or anything like that. But here I'm having the get, then you give it the path, and finally you can give it the name of the control that gets executed once the user requests this. In this case, we're going to tell him to go inside of controllers, user, and finding the sign up without the extension .js, because it's smart enough to know about this. And go inside of users, line up, and there we go. Or you might also go ahead and do this. But if you have the older like structure that I've told you, when you create just one single file for the controllers and you have all of your functions inside of the single file without putting them like separately inside of this folder thing, you can go ahead and do that too. Like you can go and do like controller, my controller name, and you can give it a function name, like function name in here, and it gets executed normally without any problems. So this is where you want to define your routes. You can have like custom configuration. You might want to find this helpful because these comments are really helpful. You can go ahead and delete them, but you might want to also consider keeping them because they actually play a role of a documentation. So when you take a look on this file, you know exactly what it does and how to configure it. And if there's any possible customization settings or anything like that, that actually can be done behind the scenes to make this very customizable and take your own schema. So that's pretty basic for the routes. There's plenty of other configuration like the data stores in here, which tells like Sails how you can go ahead and which adapter that it uses. And what I mean by the adapter is actually you can go ahead and tell it to use MySQL, MongoDB, or any other type of database. That's Sails.js actually supports without any problems. And here the URL will give it a custom configuration like your username, your password if it has any in the port that it runs, and obviously the database name. You can also, like this is by default, so the default objects means what database adapter is going to be used by default. You can have multiple databases like running MongoDB and MySQL alongside each other without any problems or anything like that. But the first thing you want to consider before doing any of this, you need to install the adapter and make sure the adapter is actually available for Sails.js. There's a couple of adapters available out of the box from the Sails core team, like MySQL, MongoDB, Redis, and stuff like that. That can actually, you'll go ahead and use it without any problems. And yeah, this actually with the data stores, plenty of them, like the HTTP in here, about middlewares. So if you want to go ahead and add a middleware which runs just before your controller does, and the most awesome thing that I like about this is which not going to be available for you on a basic Express application. I'm not telling you using some kind of third-party module or something that helps you throughout the box, but it allows you actually to specify which order the middleware is going to run through. So for example, you're going to run the cookie parser middleware before the session, or the body parser before that, or just after it, and you just like specify the order and play with it however you want. And obviously you can go ahead and just display or put your own custom middlewares inside of this without any problems. As well, as I've told you, you can just create a function, and this is going to be playing the role of the name of the middleware that you're going to put in here. Once you put it in here, it's going to be executed. If you don't put it up here, it's not going to be executed anyway. It's going to throw you an error, or you can go ahead and make it ignore it. But to make it execute in that, it takes actually a function and it returns a function. So a function, this one, it takes a request, a response, and a next, and you can do whatever thing you might want to consider doing with a normal middleware. So this is where your middleware is going to be defined. There's a log for login, like error login on your server, like a socket. It also Sails.js support a custom sockets connection and stuff like that. Also, you can go with the security.js, the configuration. Plenty of things, as I've told you before, that are being configurable. And obviously, you can go configure as well the tasks and add your own custom tasks and awesome things. That's why I really like Sails.js. You're gonna find a lot of other frameworks on a Node.js, based Node.js and Express that does that, the same thing. But yeah, that's basically what I actually find awesome in here, which is Sails.js. What I was talking about, the actual model in there and the controller. If you try to submit in here, if you remember that it's put in the route to do /add, and you give it like actually a name, and you give it like a to-do name for that, you're gonna create this, and it just like returns a response with an object, the newly object created for us. And there we go. This is actually working pretty much fine with async await, syntactical sugar, and so on and so forth. That a plethora of things are being added in here. You can also have like a default attributes which are being added by default to whatever model you actually create or something. So if a new model gets created, those by default are going to be added as attributes to this particular model without doing anything. You can obviously go ahead and customize this and, you know, add other default things or remove those. But yeah, you can have as well yours in here and do plenty of things with this. So I just want to give you this quick example to make you sure that it's working and application working, and you can have everything working pretty much fine. And yeah, there we go actually, guys. So thank you guys for watching. This actually Sails. Make sure you go ahead and check out the documentation in here because a plethora of things can happen in this particular documentation. You might want to first check out the concepts section in here because it has the most awesome concepts that Sails.js actually covers and implements, so you can easily have points of what Sails.js is capable of and why you can actually go ahead and do with this. So thank you guys for watching. As I've said again, hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe, push that like button, and wait for another video tutorials. Make sure to give him ideas, what you want and stuff like this. And there we go. So see you guys in the next one.